Today's guest on the podcast is a master in transformation. Elisa Tidswell has gone from experiencing abusive relationships, self-doubt and stress to becoming a highly successful creator, entrepreneur, business consultant and coach, hosting Mindvalley Super Coach Immersion and empowering over 2,000 people to improve their lives. Elisa now helps others to craft a dream vision for their lives and live into it. And today I'm excited and excited to find out how. And I hope my voice holds up for this episode. It feels like it's about to go, but I know it's gonna hold true because that's what I'm about. So thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I like excited, by the way. That sounds like a word that my kids would make up.
Excited, yeah. It's a little bit of a mix of excitement and maybe some spider power in there as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I like it. I'm going to adopt it. But
yeah.
anyway, I'm excited too.
Join the excitement. Well, yeah, thank you so much for joining. And look, you've had quite a journey. What I want to dive into straight away is what's been the turning point for you?
So I've had a few, but I would say that the biggest turning point for me was 5 years ago, just after I'd had my daughter. And I'll just tell you this story, but she was literally a few weeks old, and I'd just put her in a baby bouncer outside the bathroom, and I'd got into the shower so I could see her through the shower. But when I was in the shower, I just remember like feeling completely drenched in shame, and I'm going to say self-disgust, because it did feel like self-disgust. And I was being triggered at the time by just memories of like the abuse that I'd been through, and all of that shame I directed back on myself. And I'd carried that around for years, for like at least 10 years. And I don't know, it almost came over me like a fog, like this dense level of shame. Like it completely took over me. And I remember when I stepped out of the shower and I saw her, and she was just like this gorgeous, perfect little being, looking up at me. And I just remember thinking in that moment, how do I stop her going through this? It was like a real, like, oh my God, horror moment. How do I stop her going through what I went through? And there was just this voice in my head that said, Elisa, you have to change. So I just kind of like, it was just this snap turning moment for me where I was just like, right, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm about. I wanted to become the role model for her of everything that I wanted for her. So, to have like healthy, great relationships, to be to do work that she absolutely loved, to feel confident financially, to feel free and happy and joyful. And at that time, even though I was happily married, and I'm still married to the same guy, but like I was not, I questioned how much I was even present in that relationship at that point, because I was so in my past all the time, in shame all the time, that how present was I even in that? So I immediately just decided, right, there's so many women that have been through what I went through. And I had a lot of judgment around myself. And the judgment was basically, I was intelligent, I was bright, I was like fun to be around. How the hell did I let myself get in that situation? And that was the constant narrative that was going through my mind, is that I'm a failure. So I just, decided from that moment, right, I know it's just not me that goes through this. I knew other women, like really intelligent, powerful women who just put up with absolute shit in their lives and were suffering so much, but no one was talking about it. So I just decided, screw it, I'm just going to start talking about it. So I set up a Facebook group. It was called Such a Gritty Girl at the time, because I wanted to do things for, not only for talk about what I was going through, but also to empower the next generation of women. And I would just like start talking about what I was experiencing, but then also what I was learning. So one of the first things that I did was take a course. I think it was called like Money and Manifesting. So I was like, right, I need to improve my relationship with money. I'm gonna tackle that first. And it was a really simple course. It was only 4 weeks. But one of the first exercises in that was to write a list of 100 things that I wanted. And for me, even having a concept of wanting something was completely alien. Like, I don't know what I want. I've never wanted anything. I'm not supposed to want. Wanting is bad. Wanting is selfish, and all of these things. But I just dove into it anyway. And I was really scraping the barrel on this list. And I remember I only actually got to 36. But, when I say scraping the barrel, I was like, right, I want a new shed. I want socks without holes in. It was like really scraping the barrel on stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
2 things came out on that list, which were really surprising to me. One was that I wanted to find my voice. And it was surprising because I was like, I don't even know what that means. What does that even mean? And then the second thing was that I wanted to become a good public speaker. And again, I'm like, where the hell is that coming from? So the second thing that happened, like literally the day after I'd written that, I happened to see an ad on Facebook for a course called Speak and Inspire. So I was like, right, that came up on my list yesterday. Like that was the thing that rang the most true. Like once I'd gotten through all the crap about sheds and socks without holes in, it was right, find your voice. So I just signed up for that course. It was a Mindvalley course at the time with Lisa Nichols, who is just an insanely incredible speaker if you ever get the chance to see her. And that course really, all of these things changed my life, but that course, like 100% really shifted my life. One of the things was it was the first time that I'd ever really broken the walls down about feeling worthy. Because one of the requirements of the course was we were all live in a Facebook group. There were hundreds of people doing it, and you had to go live in the Facebook group, which for me was absolutely terrifying, like terrifying. And and still people now will say to me, I remember when you did your first video and how I looked like a deer in headlights. I was absolutely like, pooping my pants. But I don't know, just liberating that voice, liberating like what was going on underneath, but then also like seeing how supportive other people were, seeing other people going through like transformation, seeing other people being vulnerable about their stories. It's so uniting. And it gives you strength and like encouragement to keep sharing. And I had a wonderful breakthrough on one of the days where like I definitely used to have a narrative that my voice wasn't important. I know I'm talking a lot. Look at me. I've gone from like not being able to talk at all to like talking nonstop. My voice wasn't important. Who would listen to me anyway? All of those kind of things, which do still pop up every now and again. But people were so encouraging, and people would say to me like, thank you for sharing like your story, like it's changed my life, or like you gave me the courage to share my story. And I just realized then actually there was a sense of worth that was beginning to come. And one of the things was I realized how much I love my children. And I was like, well, the creator that created us will have that same love for me, which is unconditional, which is, you just see the glory and the majesty. And like, I see that in my kids. It's just pure unconditional love. And I was like, right, well, that creator clearly has the same love for me. And then just all these walls kind of began to fall down around worthiness. So though that moment, which then led on to like a couple of things, like were really the beginning of that transformation process for me.
Wow, it's really powerful, and I love how you saw that in what you wanted for your daughter, and then you could see what was happening in you, and then seeing that if things didn't change, then that would be something that might be passed on to her, or something that's happening for her. What was life like for you before then, before you had that moment, before you had that realization?
I think I just probably passed a lot of my days in, I don't know, like I don't feel like I was ever really present.
Yeah.
Now I actively work on getting present every day and being present. And so much of being in a coaching conversation is being present with someone. I just don't remember ever, or maybe I had moments of real fleeting presence, moments of fleeting joy. Um, but I think I had probably numbed out most of feeling, full stop. Um, except for shame, that was always a consistent feeling going on. But I'd numbed everything out, and I don't like, yeah, I think it's just like when I look back at that time now, I have so much compassion for that person, so much like I have real love and compassion for who she was. And I'm also like so grateful to her for like actually just waking up at some point. And of course, I'm like super grateful for the mode in which that happened, which was like my daughter in that moment just gave me my life back to just become aware of who I was and who it was that I wanted to be. Before
Mm.
I was just in a daze, really, I think. Not when I was a kid, and
Yeah.
but I probably from about 20 onwards, just yeah, like more of just a daze in life, a real people pleaser, just yeah.
Yeah, so like not present, and for me, what I've seen a lot recently is that when we're not present, what we're not is we're not connected. So we're disconnected from ourselves, from our bodies, from our feelings, from our experience. So it's like you're there, but you're not really there. And when you're present, really being present means you're connected, not only with yourself, but with the other people that are around you as well. And
Yeah.
one of those big disconnectors is shame, right? That feeling that we're not worthy or that we are a failure or we're not enough. How did you work through that internal shame, and how do you deal with that when it pops up in life?
Yeah, so I mean it's interesting. I mean, I don't think there's like one thing, to be honest. I feel like I've been since then just a constant evolution of a person, and I love that, I feel like I don't recognize myself from week to week, but not in a bad way. Like oh my God, I used to think that. Oh my God, I used to limit myself in that way. Oh my God, I used to deny myself like these feelings of, like so but I would say that if there were like a few things that I do on a consistent daily basis to continue to liberate myself, one of them is absolutely journaling. Like, when I first started journaling, it would be more about, oh my God, just like what thoughts were in my brain, which was just absolute garbage. And I would just like chuck them down on it. But it would at least help me see the thoughts as something separate to who I was. Nowadays, I'm a lot more specific with my journaling. I'll do specific journaling exercises, and all of those kind of things. So journaling is one of them.
Can I just
Yeah.
jump into ask, have you got any journal prompts for people that might be useful?
Yeah, so the one that I'm absolutely loving at the moment is to journal every day on what's changing. So, like, how are you changing? What's showing up in your life? How are you growing? And the reason, like, I'm loving doing this, and I keep talking with it, I keep telling everyone to do it, is because, our mind is so focused on, like, our ego wants us to stay safe, and safe is what is known. So it just always wants to, which is basically the past, it always wants to keep us in the past, um in what is known. So when we focus, it doesn't like growth, it doesn't like change, it doesn't like transformation. I mean, to be honest, it doesn't even understand it. It's outside of its realms of understanding, right? But when we begin to focus on how am I growing, what's changing, like what's showing up in my life, this, like, we begin to recondition our brain, like literally we grow new neurons, to familiarize ourselves with growth. So if we want to grow more, like whatever, this, right? Whatever we focus on, expand. So if we want to grow, we focus on how are we growing, what's changing. And it's also wonderful because it begins to recondition the nervous system to feel safe in change, to feel safe in transformation, which again, the nervous system is not, like, its default setting is not designed for that. Its default setting is the past. Its default setting is what's safe, what's survival. But when we begin to feel more and more and acknowledge what's changing, we recondition our mind, we recondition our nervous system, and then we get more of that. So like that's one that I like 100% recommend people do. I mean, I'm loving it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because we focus too much on things being the same, then we just get more of that, and we think it feels safe because nothing's changing, but ultimately, then it makes the unknown and change more scary and less familiar. So I love that idea of being able to journal on that, and also getting the thoughts out of your head and onto paper so you can see them as thoughts and actually kind of like take a look at them. Like, do I agree with that? Do I want that? Is that real? Versus when it's in our head, we're seeing through the thoughts. It's really hard to untangle them. So I love how you've been using journaling as a tool to really kind of discover yourself a bit more, and also separate from those negative voices and thoughts that hold you back. And I know before we started the podcast today, we were talking about that question of who am I? And you've been doing some self-discovery work on who am I? And I ask this question a lot as well, because, people often have the idea of, well, you know exactly who you are, and then everything's sorted and your life's set, and people appear to have that on the outside. But it's a constant questioning and rebirth process to discover who you are, because each time we break through a new fear or something we haven't done before, you're going to be a new version of you because you've never done that. So you've never been that. So there isn't just, this is me and then I'm set. It's a constant uncovering. What's that been like for you?
For me, it feels like continuous expansion. Like when I read books and I reread books over and over and over again. So one of them that I'm rereading over and over again at the moment is Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And he talks about how we get stuck in our personality, basically. And and I've been really looking at what is my personality, and my personality is made up of, if I don't question it, it's made up of the past. It's made up of my experiences of the past, the meanings that my ego has made out of them. It's made up of what other people have told me about myself. It's made up of what culture has said is right and wrong, and all of these kind of things. And the more I begin to just question that and allow myself to shake off that personality, the more it expands. Because like personality is just like, I don't know, it's like trying to squeeze yourself into a box. But we come from an eternal source. We come from infinite, like, fact. And it's like, you can't squeeze infinite into a box with a label. Like, you just can't. It's everything and anything. So the more I let go of that personality, which takes recognizing it, like, how is it that I think? Like you said, is this even true? Can I really know that this is true? The more you let go of that, the more you expand. Like, so for me, like, this process feels like constant maybe I shouldn't say constant expansion, because there are moments like where the ego will pull us back in and it feels like a contraction. But yeah, like, it just feels like, oh, I'm just expanding my awareness all the time. I'm expanding like what's coming to me. I'm expanding in goodness. I'm expanding in awareness. I don't know. It's difficult sometimes to put it into words.
Yeah, I feel like we are constantly expanding. It's just sometimes we stop ourselves from doing that. It's like we're in the car and it wants to drive and we're just sat with the brake on. The car's like, no, we just go. Like, we want to go, and we're just stopping sometimes, and that's okay. It's just recognizing where it is. For me, when I want to do something new or step into the unknown, I hear the voice of, well, that's not me. That's not me. So what I try and do is to align myself with that, is I pretend that it's normal to do the things that I want to do and that I've always done them, or that it's just, I just even will say it's normal for me to do that. It's fun for me to do that. It's natural
Yeah.
for me to do that, to trick
Yeah.
myself into them, because it can be, when it feels like that, that's what we do. We do who we think we are. It's just
Yeah.
that who we are is ever expanding, always kind of opening up.
Yeah.
Um, do
I mean,
you,
that's another tool that I will use a lot is visualization. So,
yeah,
like you said, so it's like actually imagining yourself doing that thing that currently feels really scary, because like our minds don't know the difference between whether it's real or not anyway. So we just like when we visualize it, we're getting our mind used to it. We're, you know, I think it's really fascinating. Like, I think it's on fMRI scans where they can show that, like, literally like our brain neurons end at what we know. So in order to move out of what we know, we have to grow new neurons. And like one of the best ways to do that is to actually visualize yourself doing the thing that currently feels really unfamiliar, really scary, really like, oh my God, everyone's going to judge me for this, or whatever it is. But just to see yourself doing that, and then yeah, again, your mind becomes conditioned to it, your body becomes conditioned to it, and then it just starts happening and showing up.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's being it before you already are it in your head. And like you
Exactly.
said, the brain doesn't know the difference.
Yeah.
Um, you said that you then had this, don't know whether it was a thought or a feeling, that you wanted to find your voice and you wanted to speak. Um, how did that begin to expand for you? How you were speaking in the Facebook group and starting to put yourself out there. How did you kind of step into that over time?
Yeah, it's funny because I still feel like where did that even come from? I still feel like it's, even for me, it still feels a bit alien. Like I don't necessarily see myself as a speaker. Uh, I should do some more visualization around that. But when I first started to do this work, and it was from the Speak and Inspire course that I did, I started to keep a journal. It was the first time in my life I'd ever started to actually write down my thoughts, or what did I want out of life, all of those kind of things. And I used to write down that, like one day I'll be speaking on a Mindvalley stage and I'll, this and that and the other. Um, and then that happened. So, which, yeah. And what's really interesting about that is that that was so far away from my reality at the time that I like, if my personality had been involved, for example, my personality could never have come up with that vision of me speaking on Mindvalley stage, like in other countries, and this and that and the other. That didn't come from me in the same way that the Find Your Voice didn't come from me.
Why wouldn't that come from your personality?
Because my personality is just limited to what I know, which is, so I'll give you an example. Like when I was growing up, everyone used to say to me that I was shy. So, whenever I would go to any events, I'd always be hiding behind my dad. And my dad's not necessarily shy, but he's quite quiet. But anyway, and so this idea that I was shy was constantly reinforced. So I kind of just grew up believing that I was shy. And my mum, God bless her, she was always kind of like pushing me to do things, and I was terrified of it. And I'll give you an example. So like one time we went along to I don't know what it was, an event, and there were loads of other youth there. I was probably about 13, something like that at the time, like painfully like insecure and shy and hated speaking in front of people and all of those kind of things. And because I knew my mum, who was always pushing me to like do things, and like she'd always like volunteer me for things, and I just and anyway, and I begged her, I was like, please, please, please don't make me speak. Like when we go there, please, please, please. And she was like, it's the first time ever she said that she wouldn't make me speak. But yeah, we got there, and then like everyone was sat in a circle, and then it just became clear at some point, to my horror, that like everyone was speaking in turn, and like, I was gonna have to speak. And I remember just literally dying, like went bright red, like my face probably expanded like 5 times its size. And I remember people looking at me like, what is wrong with her? Like I'm having some like anaphylactic shock reaction or something. But that was me. That was my personality. Was I was shy. I don't like speaking in front of other people, and it was essentially like people are going to judge me, and I have nothing of worth to share. Essentially, what it came down to.
And what so that's what you thought you were capable of. That's what your personality was telling you. It's kind of like if you haven't done it already, or it's not something you're experiencing now, then it's not
Yeah.
possible for you. So
Yes.
then how do you go from personality to expanding your reality?
So I love this question. Thank you for asking it. And I feel for me this is something that I'm diving more and more into at the moment and learning to trust more. And so, I've had a few moments in my life where I've felt that the thoughts that are coming to me or the feelings or the ideas are beyond me. They're more of like an instruction, for example, like find your voice. Uh, what was the other one? Become a good public speaker. Like they did not come from me. And again, it's a great exercise that I invite like any or encourage anyone to do if you want to begin to discover more about what lies underneath, is to free write. So free writing is where you just let stuff come out and you keep writing, keep writing, keep writing, keep writing until and you just see what comes out. um and often what happens is you'll get the garbage, which is all the thoughts floating around in your mind. They'll come out on paper, but then once they're out, it creates space for, I don't know, like divine inspiration, intuition to start coming through. So yeah, I've had a few moments of those, like the one with the shower where it said, Elisa, you have to change. Like, I mean, I literally remember feeling it like it came from up here into my head. That didn't come from me. And then I'll just tell you quickly, because like this is why I'm leaning into it more now. Is last year I kept for the last kind of few months of last year I kept getting this voice in me. Well, it wasn't even a voice, it was like a feeling slash voice telling me to do daily calls. And but that was it. There was like no other information, there was no instruction, there was no like, well, what are these calls about, and I kept ignoring it, ignoring it, ignoring it, because like, what's that? Do daily calls doesn't mean anything to my limited fear-based ego. And then it was something like December 25th, and I just thought, oh, I'm just gonna actually like choose to listen to this, because I really thought, like, who is it that I want to be in the world? Do I want to be someone who listens to, like these urges, or do I want to be someone who ignores it? And I totally know that ignoring it doesn't serve me. I have so many examples of where not listening has like not served me at all. It's wasted a lot of my time, wasted a lot of energy, wasted love, wasted money, like all of those things. So I thought, screw it, I'm gonna do it. So I just messaged all of my clients and I said, starting like 3rd of January, I'm going to do daily calls every day for the whole month. I don't know what they're going to be about. But if you'd like to come, we start at 6 a.m. on the 3rd of January. And I thought no one would come, which was also another fear in my head, was, well, what if no one comes? And I just decided, well, look, even if you're the only person that goes, it will be transformative for you. So just do it. And then to my surprise, like they all came, which completely like blew my mind. And then yes, so every day we did these daily calls. I didn't know what they were going to be about until literally I opened Zoom. Like sometimes I might get a little bit of an inspiration or like an image or something. And they were a bit fumbly. Like they started off one thing where I was trying to think, oh, maybe these are about talking about our vision. Maybe they're about writing down our goals. I mean, I don't know. But when I just stepped more into the flow, actually they just turned into these insane, I've never experienced anything like it, meditation slash, I don't know, like divine connection sharing. I need to like be able to describe these better, but they were so transformative, not only for me, but for everyone who came to the calls. Like, and the thing is, I could not have come up with them. When I open Zoom every day, it wasn't like I was speaking, but I wasn't thinking, it was just coming out. And what I, an insight that I had recently is when I don't need to know I don't need to know all the details. If I have enough trust to just follow the instruction, God will take care of the rest. And that's exactly what happened. Like every single day throughout January, over and over and over again, I just followed the instruction, like open the call, invite people, and then the rest was taken care of. So for me now, I'm stepping more into that, which feels really scary, I have to say. Like my ego is not happy about it at all, but I'm just, it's just like get on with it, and lean into that trust. Like it's whenever I've like actually listened to that voice, it's always led me to like the most incredible places and opportunities. So doing it again.
Yeah, I love that. It's so funny because this morning before our podcast, I posted like an affirmation on Threads, which is like the Instagram's version of Twitter, and I said, today's affirmation is choose faith over fear, and that's exactly what you're pointing towards, is that there are these messages coming from beyond you that are coming into you, and you can choose to follow them and dive into it, or you can just put the brakes on and say no, but then you never get to find out. And these are the things that are leading you towards these great experiences and connections with other people, which is a far way from where you were when you were disconnected with yourself and maybe stuck in that personality that was kind of holding you back. And so you've gone from being stuck, feeling shame, feeling like a failure, to starting to discover your voice, wanting to speak on stages, and one day I'll speak on the Mindvalley stage, and that's now a reality for you. That's something that you've spoken on Mindvalley stages. You've hosted super coach immersions. Tell me about that. What was that like to be on the stage and have your dream realized?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. And I'm just going to share this as well, just because it's still relevant for me. Like even now, there's still a voice in my head, even as I'm talking about it, saying, that's nuts to trust your intuition. Like, what are you doing? Like in my head right now, it's like there's still this little voice of judgment around it, which is really just fear. And it wasn't necessarily that I ever even wanted to speak on stage, or that I even do now. Like if my ego has anything to do with it, I do not want to, that part of me does not want to speak on stage. No way. But then there's this other part of me that's, find your voice, get good at public speaking. And it really just started by so I took one of Mindvalley launched certification, which was certified business coach, I think about 3.5 years ago. It was the first certification that I took with them. And I took that one because I'd run a marketing agency for about 10 years at that point. So for me, it made sense to do that one. And I remember being in this cohort of just like amazing business people, and I felt total imposter syndrome. But at the end of every live Q&A, or at the end of every session, there was an opportunity to like put your hand up and ask questions. And I remember just being absolutely terrified to, but there was a question that I wanted to ask on the first call, and I was literally like shaking, my palms were sweating. I was an embarrassment. But no, I shouldn't say that. I'm gonna remove that judgment. But I just remember thinking, Elisa, if you don't put your hand up now, like you're a chump. Put your fucking hand up. Pardon my language. So I raised my hand, and I just like, by the time it got to me, because like there were people in front of me, by the time it got to me, I was so like, my heart was out here. I mean, it's like, when I think about it now, it's ludicrous, but my heart was out here. And I just remember shouting my question because I just wanted to get it out. Um, and then like not taking in a single word that like the co-founder Ajit had said, not taking in a word. I was just waiting for it to end so that I could say thank you and goodbye, which I did like as quickly as possible, and then turned off my camera. But I basically did that every single call, or and also set a really strong intention to make my money back by the end of that certification. So I would just, even though I didn't want to, like, there's this thing in me that would make me put my hand up and share. And then I would share, like what I was learning. I would share how I was pitching to a client, this kind of stuff. And it basically just kind of got me noticed without me with that being the intention. And then, yeah, soon after that, not soon after that, maybe about, yes, it was soon after that, they started looking for coaches, which I applied for, had lots of interviews for, had to do lots of coaching of businesses and this and that and the other. And then I was chosen for that, but it never happened. That program never happened. But then a couple of years ago, they launched one, and they said, can you come on and be an accountability coach for us for this particular cohort that they were program they were running. So I just started off in quite a small role, and then within 6 months they said, will you now come and join the main coaching team, so join the faculty for teaching. So I did that, and then last year they asked me if I would actually run the whole program, and then hosts now. I've hosted the certified business coach now like several times. I host their certified life coach. Spoken on stages there a few times, and then Ajit asked me if I would host the live event in Austin last year. So these things just like it was never an intention of mine, and it was me fighting actually my personality that created those opportunities. I don't know, I sometimes think like, would my life be easier if I just wanted to be a speaker? But I'm like, just roll with it.
Yeah. So it's like there was a calling in you to become a speaker. And so the battle was, well, do I want to? And all of the fears that are in the way, that
100%.
they never go away, by the way. It's that some people feel like you have that. And you see like the people like Eckhart Tolle, Byron Katie, and you feel like you can have an enlightenment and then everything's just great. But
Yeah.
for normal human beings that are having, that are in touch with their spirituality, you have this amazing gift and these amazing connections, but you also have the reality of fear and doubt that stay with you. And it's that mastering, I think you call it like a battle that goes on, and knowing like you get to choose who wins that battle. What was it like for you being on stage and hosting that event in Texas? Was it Texas, right?
It was in Texas, yeah.
Texas, yeah.
I absolutely loved the entire thing. It was just, and again, it was one of those places where people just kept coming up to me and saying, I love your energy. And I've really realized that people don't really remember what you say, but they do remember how you made them feel, because like energy like creates experience, right? It's how we experience life is what we remember. And I don't know, for me it was just magical. It was the first time that I'd ever really realized that I had a capacity to hold space for a large number of people. I'd spoken at another Mindvalley event a year before that. That was the first one that I did. That one I kind of felt exhausted. And at some point, I was helping out. At some point I had to go off and just like be on my own, have a cry and all of those kind of things. But I think it was still old stuff coming out of me, Whereas when I, like in Texas, I just like I felt free of myself, the free of the self. So I was just
Yeah.
able to just hold space for others and still like have loads of energy. And no, I mean it was magical, totally magical.
Yeah. I love
Bring
that.
on more.
Yeah. So talking of more and what you're up to and how you help people as well. I know one of the things I've seen you talk about is vision and having a vision, stepping into that. How important is it to have a vision?
I think really having a vision is kind of like everything. Not a vision that's going to take you out of the present, because we don't want to just live in like a future. We want to live in the present, but we want to bring our vision, what it is that we want to create, who it is that we want to be, and we want to bring that into our present. Like, you know, it's almost I'm doing a great course at the moment, which is about like manifesting mastery, and the teacher in that, she talks about, you know, like in your mind, put a pin where you are now, like see exactly where you are now, like almost like on a map, right? You're seeing it on a field, like obviously with your eyes closed. It's not obvious, but I'm saying it. And then like put a pin where your vision is. So, you know, see it on a map, see it as like there's distance between you. And again, you know, distance is something that we experience here as a like on a relative, like we live in this world that's physical, like distance is relative. um and but anyway, let's not get into that. That's a bit more complicated,
Hmm.
and I'm not sure I could explain it anyway. But anyway, then you put a pin on your vision, so you actually see it in your mind. You put a pin, drop a pin in that place, almost like it's a map, and then you just fold time over, almost like, you know, you're literally like, it's almost like your pins are on a map, and you're going to fold that map in half, so now your pins are in the same place. And when we start creating ourselves, I mean, this was one of the most pivotal things that I've learned, is that our vision isn't a place to get to, it's a place to come from. Um, and first of all, I didn't get that at all, because I was like, well, I don't have like £1 million now, and I don't have XYZ now. Like, that's just rubbish. But what I didn't realize, it's not about the physical, like, or outer manifestation. It's about first embodying who is that person that's created a company that generates $1 million. Who is that person that has an incredible relationship? Who is that? Like, how do they show up? How do they think? How do they feel? How do they operate in the world? And when we begin to embody that now, like, how do they feel on a day-to-day basis? Like, what do they do when they wake up in the morning? When we begin to like really think about that and embody that, like, that's when we start collapsing time and like literally like folding over that map and dropping those pins together. That's when our vision, like, no, like, we're living into our vision right now. Another way of looking into this is, if we don't have a vision, which we always kind of do in a way, our vision is either being constructed consciously, like we're thinking about what it is that we want. Maybe we're coming at our vision from a place of divine inspiration or whatever it is, but it's either conscious, or we have a vision that's unconscious. In other words, it's being constructed by our ego. And that vision is always going to be a reflection of the past. So do we want to keep repeating the past, or do we want to create something new? And I genuinely believe it's in our inherent nature to want to expand. Like, if we look at anything, like even like the universe is in a state of expansion. Like, we're designed to expand. And when we step into that expansion in the present moment, like, then that's what we get more of. We get more and more expansion.
Yeah, and that vision, I mean, I remember you were saying that when you first started asking that question, and it's such a simple question but very powerful, of what do I want? And you start writing down and you got to 36 things, and that's actually impressive, to be honest. If you're going for 100, it's still a lot, right?
Yeah.
And you start small, because quite often people struggle to craft a vision because they're starting from, well, it's not okay for me to have what I want, or I don't know
100%.
what I want because I've spent my whole life thinking, what do other people want, or what should I do, right? So you can
Mhm.
start small and then start to expand out. But once you start creating what you want, it's also one of the things I learned when I studied transformational coaching I went with a company called Animas, and the guy that runs it, Nick Bolton, I remember in one of the trainings, he said that you test what somebody wants. And the question I'll ask someone is, what, they'll have the vision. And he gives the example of, well, he was coaching someone that wanted to run a marathon. And he said, great, well, once you get there and it's all done, what would it mean to you? And they said, oh, well, once I'd done it, it would make my dad happy. And he said, well, what would it mean to you? And they were like, well, not so much for me, but I know it would make my dad happy. And so they could start to see that their dreams weren't their dreams. They were those unconscious patterns of, let me see if I can make everybody else happy.
Yeah.
Versus you really start to find out, well, what do I want? And what would that mean to me? It would mean the world to me. It would mean that I'd be who I want to be. I'd be happy. I'd be free. So making that conscious, and that's where the vision does come from beyond you, because that's coming from beyond our personality, these inspired ideas. And then you take them and you create into them and live into them. Then you feel that alignment of, this is who I truly am. When I'm with you on manifesting in terms of, we don't attract what we want, we attract who we are. If we're wanting something, wanting more confidence, and then we're not acting as if we had that confidence, we won't get it because we're coming from a place of a different energy. How do you then balance this? Here's my vision. I'm clear on it. I've dropped the pin. I've sandwiched it over, and I'm coming from that place. And then my ego shows up, or now fear comes in. How do you balance the two when you're wanting to be this person and fear comes up, or the doubts come up? What do you do with that, and how do you help people with that as well?
So there's loads of different things that we can do, actually. I mean, I'll give a few. So again, one of them that I would say is journaling, like get those fears and put them on paper. Byron Katie says something really wonderful. She says, when we put our mind to paper, mind stops. So, and people will say to me, oh, can I not just type it out? Or can I have it on can I dictate it? I'm like, no, pick up a pen and a piece of paper, because you're forcing, because otherwise what happens is the mind will just continue to make up more and more and more stories. It's like a tornado. It just doesn't stop. But when we pick up a pen and then put it on the paper, we force the mind to stop. And then we can really start questioning, is that really true? Another thing that I think is really wonderful to do is to, maybe it's a little bit more advanced, so I'll speak about another one first, but is to recondition your nervous system so that it feels safe in this new belief. So let's say that let's say that your vision feels unsafe, which it will to your nervous system and your ego, which is all the unconscious. A great technique that you can do is something called havening. So I learned this from Paul McKenna. But I think you can find it on havening.org. It's a great tool. Havening is a process of kind of touching the body. So you rub up your arms and your hands and things like this. And then you do some very short exercises. If you want to look it up, Paul McKenna's got quite a few havening videos online. What this does is it literally, I can't remember the exact science, but it when we're in fear, we get a part of our brain gets phosphated and it cannot think beyond it. But when we do the havening process, it's been proven to literally release that phosphate. So it takes away the fear, and the nervous system begins to regulate and feel safe in this new way of being. So that's a technique that I will often use. Havening is also used a lot with people who have experienced trauma and PTSD, but you can definitely use a milder version just for fears that are coming up that make no logical sense. No one ever died public speaking, but your ego will have you believe that you are going to die. It's I think it's the number one greatest fear for most people is public speaking. But it makes it literally makes no sense from you're not actually gonna die, but your ego will tell you it will, because it doesn't want you to stand out. It doesn't want people to judge you. It doesn't, all of these things. So havening is a great one. Another thing that I've been doing a lot of, which is a little bit more advanced, if you do meditation, is to do a practice where you meditate every day. And I picture myself on an anchor of a boat going deeper and deeper into the ocean. And obviously, we know, like, the deeper you are in the ocean, it gets very dark. For me, that's terrifying. Like, but what I'll do is I'll continue to do that meditation every day and allowing myself to be in that space of darkness, to be in that space of the unknown, like, you don't know what's out there in the ocean. And all what that does is, if you do it every day and you allow yourself to just stay for a bit longer each day in that space of darkness, it will increase your resilience and your tolerance of the unknown. So it's a really, I mean, I have found it super powerful to do that. And actually, for me, like, when I do that meditation now, I have no fear going, like, down into the dark. And in fact, I can turn it into light, just like literally with the click of my fingers. But when I first began to do that, that was very, very scary. And I couldn't, like, my mind literally couldn't handle it, and it would want to, like, pull me straight back up to the surface. So anyway, that's another one. It's a little bit more advanced, but if you're into meditation, and that's a practice that you could start doing straight away.
Yeah, I love that. So there's some really, like, practical and simple tools that people can use to bridge this gap between here's my fear, here's my faith, here's where I want to go. So you've got the havening tool, you've got the meditations, you've also got that journaling, and that links exactly with what you were talking about around journaling on growth, journaling on expansion and change, getting yourself familiar with this so that your body can regulate and make those uncomfortable feelings known and settle yourself and start to bridge the gap between the two. Yeah, I love that.
There's one more thing that I would add to it, and that is to not only, because if we're only focused on the fear, for example, even though we're in the process of transformation, we still want to balance it out with for me anyway, this is really important, balancing it out with knowledge and experiencing who it is that we really are. So for me, something that's really important is reading spiritual texts. It's, and those spiritual texts can be from, like, the Bhagavad Gita or the hidden words of Baha'u'llah or whatever it is. Or it can be from like Ralph Waldo Emerson, or, but they're reminders of divinity. They're reminders of what we come from. They're reminders of, like, all of the goodness. So when we have this awareness of everything that is good, and it's almost like that begins to transform the fear as well, because we're bringing faith into the equation, faith and knowledge of who it is that we truly are. And the more you do the work to get rid of the fear, the more, when you read those spiritual texts, you begin to recognize the truth in those more and more and more. You see yourself in it more and more and more.
Yeah, I think it's like a mental diet, mental spiritual diet. What are we feeding ourselves every day? I think if we're really stuck in things like social media and the news, then we can get a lot of negativity coming in, and then that's kind of the predominant feeling that we're experiencing in the body, versus you're reading these spiritual texts, you're gaining that knowledge, that understanding. It's also training yourself to be in that state of mind, to be open for it, so that you're more connected with yourself, which makes complete sense. Yeah, tell me a little bit about how you're helping people now, who you work with, how you help them. And you also mentioned, and I know you're deeply spiritual and you bring that into what you do, and how you help people in business with spirituality as well.
Yeah, so I'm scared of all of this, but doing it anyway. So when the last time I did this kind of round of meditation, the daily calls, with my clients, was in June, and the instruction I got then was, you need to take this out to more people now. So I'm applying the logic of, okay, well, so far, whenever I've listened to this and just followed the instruction, I've been assisted. Like, I've not had to do the rest of the work, so I'm following that. So one of the things that I'm expanding is this I still need to kind of even figure out what it is. what it does for people is it builds this incredible sense of certainty, clarity, and peace, I would say. But also because it's done in a group, it builds the most incredible connection, because it's not just people getting together and having a chit chat or talking about their fears or even their vision. It's people coming together and sharing what is coming through them when they're in deep meditation. And it's now I've renamed it to the field for a couple of reasons. One is back in January when we first started the calls. I say we because I don't even feel like they're my calls. I feel like I'm a participant in them. One of the first things that came out was the Rumi quote about, beyond a place of right and wrong, there's a field. I'll meet you there. So that's what we were doing. We were meeting in the field, beyond the ego. And the other thing is, like, literally, like, people turn into Rumi. I mean, the stuff that comes out of people, like, whenever anyone new comes, they're like, oh my god, I'm in a room of Rumis. So it's called the field, and I'm just kind of on the instruction to take that out to more people. I don't know how yet, but we'll see. I don't need to know how. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And that's so that's happening. I coach a few people one-to-one. They tend to be people with, they've got a vision for a better life for themselves, but also for humanity. They really want to contribute, and they have like a wider vision for, and maybe even an understanding of, like, when I contribute to humanity, I'm contributing to myself. There's no distinction between those two. Getting meditation, or I'm probably gonna, in terms of corporate, like, I want to get meditation into corporate companies, but I'm probably going to call it something a little bit different. That might be a little bit too cookie for them at the moment. So flow state, which is very similar, but it's just a little bit more digestible for companies. And then building a company at the moment to coach founders and leadership teams of high growth startups, which is really interesting for them because, often the founders of high growth startups, they are entrepreneurs. They've got a vision for contributing something amazing to humanity, but they grow so fast that, like, they just can't keep up. The leadership can't keep up. They need a lot of assistance, especially when they're looking for investment, to get investor ready. So that's the whole point of behind that company, and that's happening, and that's rolling. So yeah, I've just really got those two focuses: getting more people to meet me in the field, and then the other company.
I love that. I love the idea of the field as well. It's like, once you connect people to their own greatness, to their own inner resources, the magic starts to happen.
Yeah.
And it is a facilitation process, right? And it's available to everybody. It's just who's ready to take that step, who's ready to take a leap of faith in themselves and commit and dive in. And for anybody that does, I highly encourage you to connect with Elisa and take that step. Why not? Right? It's quite often when we have these callings, we know what we want to do, or we have that thought, we just sit on it and we wait. And that's the only thing for me. I don't have any regrets, because you can't, right? You can't go back and change the past. But the way to use that in the present is just to think, well, why wait? What else do I need to wait for if I can just keep putting this off? Time is one of our most valuable resources. If I can take the step now, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, at least I found out faster, and then I can figure out what works, what I do want.
Yeah. And I think there is nothing that ever doesn't work out. Even if we do something and our thoughts are, well, this hasn't worked. Actually, we can change those thoughts to, what am I learning? Like, what have I learned from this? What can I gain from this? Like, we can always choose how we experience our reality in any moment from anything. And it's, do we choose to gain, or do we choose to, like, judge and lose, essentially? And it's like, and I think for me, like, one of the most amazing things, like, learning and understanding, is that I get to choose how I experience life, which, like, sounds basic, but it's also, like, the most incredibly profound thing ever, that we can grasp onto.
Yeah. It's like, do we just judge it and have that default life, or do we get curious and then think about how we want to experience it? What do we want? And that's a real gift. Um,
Yeah.
I got one final question for you. I'm excited to ask you this. And it's, if you could go back and give your 12-year-old self one piece of advice, what would that be?
I think really it would just be to love and accept yourself for who you are. It's and also just to know yourself. Like, just words. I think, like, for me as a 12-year-old, I was just in judgment about myself, like, non-stop. And what would it have felt and been like to just have loved and accepted myself? Like, how much more powerful a contributor would I have been? But anyway, yeah, but and again, in this moment, I can just love and accept that 12-year-old version of me for who she was as well. Like, she was awesome, and she's the little thing in the marionette. She's that little 12-year-old version of me, and she's still part of the whole.
Mm. Yeah, I love that, and what an amazing piece of advice to give yourself or your past self now in the present from the transformations that you've experienced. And what I see is that you're really embodying that advice, not just saying that, but you're actually living that. So teaching your own children, you're teaching the people that you work with and the people that you meet all of
Yeah.
these incredible ways of being that can open things up for them. And that's what I see for you as someone who's incredibly successful, confident, powerful, yet humble at the same time. And I think it's a great combination. So I want to acknowledge you for that, and also thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And
Thank you.
let's also celebrate my voice made it through to the end. So
Excited, so excited about that.
we got to share this excitement with everybody else.
Yeah.
For I will put links into the show description, but if people want to connect with you, what's the best place for people to find you?
Probably LinkedIn or Instagram at the moment are the two easiest places. Yeah.
Cool.
But
All right.
I just want to say as well, Jon, like, I found you actually before I had met you. We had the same coach for a while. But before that, I'd already found you on Instagram. I was already following you on Instagram because I was like, who is this, like, English guy who's actually, like, really spiritual and really practical and just really lovely and, like, normal, because we see a lot of these examples in the States, like people talking about manifestation and mindset and all of this kind of stuff, and like even like lovely divine concepts, so many of them in the States, but like for the UK we have so few examples. So when I saw you, I was like, it was just so awesome to see someone who's just, like regular but irregular, if you know what I mean, regular but exceptional, extraordinary, being different and having the courage to be different and take a stand for just like authenticity and being themselves and sharing different ways of thinking and being with people. So I want to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. And I think this is what it's about. Is like I probably don't talk enough about like my spiritual journey and some of the deeper stuff, and maybe over time that will emerge. I expect it will emerge a lot more the more I go along this journey. But it's taking a stand for that this is available to anybody to really experience like deeper levels of themselves, more levels of freedom and confidence, and you don't have to be anything particularly different from what you are to be able to express that and put that out there. But we're both putting it out there in a way that feels fun for us, and it's challenging at times and it's difficult, but it's great to be on that journey. And I do encourage anybody else who's thinking, but yeah, someone else will do it, or I don't need to speak on stage, or I don't need to put myself out there. If you're thinking about doing it, there's a reason that you are, and it's worth getting on that journey and facing your fears, because on the other side of that is your true self.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so excited for your book as well. Excited for your book.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's in the works at the moment. I'm working on it. The more I'm going along, the more it's unfolding as it's meant to, and I'm super excited about when that's finished and it going out, but no rush on it right now.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, thank you so much again for joining. I'll let you go. I know you've got calls to do today. Thank you everybody else for joining us as well, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.